Hello, everyone, and welcome to Week 2 of the Dragon Warrior Randomizer Summer Tournament for 2021. I am Lorgon111, and today we will be bringing you a match between Harrason and Sparkover. This is the first match of Week 2 this year. Both these players lost their Week 1 matches, but don't let that fool you into thinking that it's not going to be a good match, because Harrason lost to DK9146, who I think is one of the previous tournament winners. Sparkover lost to a veteran Zarnax42, but Sparkover is also a veteran of this community, and so I expect that we could have a very good match going on here today. The Dragon Warrior Randomizer Tournament is going to have 5 rounds of Swiss matchups before we kind of get into kind of more bracketed kind of playoff scenarios. There's going to be lots of races upcoming. But for the production today, I am going to be joined in the booth by Aaron2U2, Archfield Monk is doing the restream, and UpToNG is going to be doing some tracking, keeping all those graphics on the bottom of the screen going for us. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I am awesome, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everybody, and we're looking forward to a very exciting race today. Lorgon, did you happen to catch either of the races that these participants were in last week?
I caught at least part of each of them. And yeah, it's also, having watched a number of the races last week, there are a number of kind of small changes to the randomizer that we may talk about kind of as they come up, but the one notable thing is just that there seems to be a whole lot more variability in the player's stat growth, and so we've seen a lot of races that have gone completely different ways, but the players are going to be entering the throne room, getting instructions from the king, and getting these first chests, so let's see what they start with.
Well, they definitely start with the spell outside, which could be useful. And so we got a extra key, that's lovely, that lets you get out of this area here with a spare key. You can check the treasury, you can check the basement.
Yeah, and the herb is also a useful starting item. It could help them win a difficult battle, given that they've only got 5 strength here at the start. They might have to endure like a long battle with a ghost or something, and so having the herb to fall back on in the middle could be useful.
Absolutely. And we did not mention, but it's been mentioned in chat, they do both have strength and HP builds, which is pretty standard, so we won't see any divergence in stat growth for the race.
But since they started with the extra key, they will be able to take advantage of an initial gold glitch. Both players went back into the throne room and saved, and now after they open up the first 2 chests, the other 2 chests will be glitched, and they'll be able to take multiple items from it.
Alright, and from my looking, it seems like we got a couple of keys in the treasury there, and also the silver harp, so pretty good start. Full keys is, as long as you don't mess it up.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if there was another item that we missed there as well. Definitely key, gold, and the harp. And silver harp is one of the 3 quest items that the players will eventually need to obtain, rounding them up from various treasure chests or spots all around the world and bring them to a couple of old men in order to eventually be able to trade for the rainbow drop, which is what they will need to be able to access Charlotte Castle, where the final boss lives. But that'll be a long ways off. Meanwhile, we've got Sparkover checking downstairs in the basement of Tandagel Castle to see what's here. And it looks like it might be Mountain Cave?
Yeah, that was what I guessed. I didn't see how many steps over they went, but it did look like a mountain to me.
And it's nice to see just a normal blue slime right outside, as well as a number of caves outside, and so they have monsters that they'll be able to kill even on their low strength, as well as some other locations they can visit.
Yep, and Sparkover going into the first cave out here, which an enemy cave, so that's either a swamp or grave.
And yeah, when Harris went downstairs, it's possible that it was Tablet. I also still didn't get a good enough look for sure.
All right, we did confirm that first cave out there is South Swamp, and then Harrison found what I believe is the Jerk Cave, so some interesting things to find right off the bat.
Indeed. But now it looks like both players are going to try to settle into a grind and see if they can get the 5 experience that they need in order to get up to level 2. And right now it seems like those blue slimes is actually going to be a very tasty monster, even though we're going to have to kill 5 of them. Oh no! Slime has fire breath, though.
Yes, you don't want to see anything special on those slimes at the beginning of the game if you're coming in with this weak of strength, because you can't do anything else. Oh my, sleep and weak fire. That is a really nasty combination. But it looks like we found Cantlin already. That's a very good find with keys, although I don't think they have the resources to get to the coordinates yet.
Yeah, in order to reach the old man in the south end of Cantlin, you have to walk over some damage barrier tiles, and the players just don't have enough hit points that they'd be able to survive there. But if they do reach that old man, he'll give them coordinates of somewhere they can go search on the overworld map for one of 7 possible buriable items. There's 3 bury spots, and one of them's the Cantlin coordinates.
That is a very interesting thing here with a gold grind possible and all of this early game like wonderful gear to have. They could looks like and we saw Sparkover do it. Hit the reset button. Might be going directly for a gold grind and then going directly there.
Indeed. And yeah, that feels like it's a little bit of a tough choice to make when you're already more than 4 minutes into the race, but given the incredible equipment that's available here, it definitely seems like something that's going to be good, because starting off with, a silver shield and a broadsword is way better than just going out and trying to punch guys naked at the start of the game.
Right, and I think I saw the flame sword, I saw the silver shield, but I don't think I saw magic armor. I think full plate was the best we had, which is still extraordinarily good for this sort of start, especially with this sort of stats.
Yeah, I mean, that's a terrific set if you can get it. And so, yeah, Sparkover has reset, and it looks like Harrason has also reset, and so it seems like they're both going to spend some time taking advantage of the glitch. Since we'll be watching it here for a moment, basically the way that Dragon Warrior was originally coded, this is a game back from the 80s. It could only keep track of 8 treasure chests that the player's already taken, and that list of treasure chests that have been taken only gets reset when the players return to the overworld. And so, since the players are never stepping out to the overworld, there's 3 treasure chests in the King's Throne Room. When you exit the first initial throne room and go back in, it reloads those 3 chests in order to empty them, so when you visit the king again, they don't reappear. And so that ends up being 6 chests. Then they take 2 out of the treasury, that's 8, and then the remaining 2 treasure chests end up being able to be taken over and over again. And so that's what they're doing. They're taking the same treasure chest over and over again, filling up their pockets with gold so they can go spend it at Callan.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's good that both of them are doing the exact same thing here. It's possible you could have went around and done this a different way, especially with what looks like mountain in the basement. But if it's tablet cave, then that is less possible. But it's there's a very interesting difference here right now. Harrison is using the search command instead of the take command, which means this is going a little bit slower than it is for Sparkover. So I'm not sure. I wonder if they know the time loss that's present there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Harrison is one of our newer runners that I'm definitely less familiar with. And so, yeah, it could be the case that doesn't realize there's the extra line of text for searched all about. And given that each character, takes up a frame of a video game, that can add up during this long gold grind, but still shouldn't set Harrison back more than, I don't know, a matter of seconds, probably.
Yeah, it probably will not matter in the long run, but it is an interesting variation. And I do see Sparkover going to 28k. I believe that's enough to clear both or all 3 of the items that they're looking to purchase, plus probably get maybe a little extra for keys or herbs or anything like that.
Yep, Sparkover, yeah, seems to know just the amount that she needs in order to buy all the things that they're going to get. And I didn't notice, I guess it's only about 1 screen away. I think Sparkover did save with her gold before she walked over there. It could be important to save to make sure you don't suddenly get ambushed by an enemy and die along the way. So we'll see if Harrison also chooses to do a safety save before walking that way, and yes, he does.
Yeah, you're losing 30 seconds to possibly save 2.5 minutes. I think that's definitely the smart move here.
All right, but as the purchases get made, our tracker is going to be filling up the equipment slots that you all can see on the bottom of the screen. The Flame Sword is plus 28 attack power, I believe. The full plate armor is another plus 24, is it? And the Silver Shield is plus 20, and so those are some huge stat upgrades, and now these players will be able to basically wipe up the floor with all the monsters here in the first few zones right around the castle.
Yeah, absolutely. No more problems. Everything, weak stats don't matter for a little while. Should be able to handle everything in the early game and probably quite a bit in the mid game, especially after a couple levels.
But it is Dragon Warrior Randomizer. We already saw it with the Blue Slime, who had Sleep and the Weak Breath. All the monsters had the chance to get random abilities, various spells and attacks. About 50% of the monsters that the characters will encounter during any particular seed will end up having some random abilities, and the other half will just do their vanilla attacks, just trying to hit the player during each turn of combat.
All right, we see Sparkover take out that Drake. He would have been doing, I think, 1 to 2 damage on that before, and hits it for a solid 13.
And so with the level up to level 2, 9 power, 6 agility, 5 hit points, and oh my goodness, did I see the spell of Hurt More.
So this might be looking like a bit of a jet seed regardless. It's going both ways, especially with Hurt More now. That's if you can't hit him with the sword, you can hit him with the magic, and that takes out almost everything.
And it's not just Hurt More, they also have Repel. It's actually potentially dangerous for them to be repelling enemies because they need to get a few more of these low-level enemies that they can get the first move on with 29 agility. But that Repel is going to be really useful once they've gotten to, I don't know, level 5 or 6 to repel all these little enemies and then go try to find, Knights and Wraith Knights and some other guys that you can hurt more for a 10 of experience, potentially.
Speaking of Hurt More, Harrason got to be introduced to the Scorpion that has it.
So it's not just our runners that have some of the powerful spells.
Looks like Sparkover's had pretty good luck with this walk here. Harrason did not, but still should be in a pretty solid position. It won't take very long to catch up from where they are. And it looks like they are diving right off the bat here.
Yeah, usually it's the case that the runners won't be strong enough just to go exploring, but now that they have the Hurt More spell, Sparkover is exploring and has found another town over here further to the east, while Harrison is making his way down through Tablet Cave to get the one chest that's going to be down here.
All right, yeah, that makes more sense. Buy a torch, and then there's no reason to not go into the Tablet Cave at this point.
But Sparkover found the town of Cole. Cole has one of the 3 search spots that can have some of the buriable items and has found the death necklace there. So she will take it in and continue her exploration.
And I missed what Tablet had. Did anybody see that there? Oh, it looks like it was gold. All right.
Cursed belt, I think, is what chat was saying.
All right. Well, we know there's at least one search spot, which we've already seen, so it gives us information, but maybe not the best information.
Sparkover's encountered Metal Slime. One of the things that's new with the standard tournament flags this year, and one of the changes to the randomizer, is a flag called Scaled Metal Slimes. It used to be the case that if you got a Metal Slime very early in the game, the 255 experience they awarded would be huge. Here she only gets 128 experience because in the Scaled Metal Slimes flag, rather than always offering a flat 255, Metal Slimes give 32 experience per level up until you get to that max at 255. And so since she was at level 4, she only got 128 experience. And that's just good in terms of the game balance so that someone doesn't get super lucky with a level Metal Slime like level 1 and 2 and get 6 levels ahead of the other player.
Right, although that's still a ton of experience for where she is at, so that is definitely a good one. She stuck through with it. I mean, you can't really run from Metal Slimes, and it's questionable to ever do it, but they do have Hurt More, and that makes them very dangerous.
But yeah, it appears the metal slime not only is in that section of the overworld, but also in Hawksness, which is the town that Sparkover has managed to find. This town has a bunch of monsters and a guardian guarding one of the other search spots, and with the Hurt More spell, there are some guardians that she would be able to take out if she can make it over to that tile.
The Axe Knight is definitely one of them. This is, I think, over a 50% chance to just win straight out. And she did. Good job.
Oh my goodness, and it's Urgic's armor. This is a super jet seed at this point. It's official.
Oh my, yes, this is a huge discovery, being able to do all this right away. I mean, this is actually very similar to Harrison's first race, where his opponent, DK, was able to get a Hawksness and get the armor and basically torch through that seed.
In this case, however, Hawksness is quite a bit of a walk from the castle, so you can't just easily Death Warp and then get back to Hawksness immediately in order to grind the Axe Knight for levels. But nevertheless, it is the case that in Dragon Warrior Randomizer, an Axe Knight on one of these spike tiles, one of these repeat encounter tiles like we have here in Hawksness, is the best way, the fastest way to earn experience and gain levels in this game. Hurt More probably has about a 2/3 shot at just taking them out in one shot, and the Axe Knight offers 130 experience, and so you can easily get hundreds of experience per minute.
Absolutely. You wonder if she might go back there. It's only, looks like 4 heal mores worth of stock and magic. It might be a little bit risky time-wise. It might be better to do something else, but that's a judgment that she would have to make, and I think all players kind of have to weigh, or you don't really know what else there is out there.
Yeah, it's the walk that would definitely potentially turn me off to doing it. I am generally in favor of doing an early grind in order to get strong enough to be able to explore the rest of the world. The characters, they've got 42 agility, and they've got a good amount of defense, and they've got Hurt More, so unless they run into some really high-tier Sharlock enemies, it seems like they're relatively unlikely to take a death. Well, I say the players. Sparkover has the armor at this point. And so I think she could probably do some exploring without taking on too much risk, but if she starts running into a couple of red dragons or some other enemy that has Dragonlord 2 Breath, for example, then she might want to go back and try to grind that Axe Knight a little bit more before she continues the exploration.
All right, and Sparkover going into that. Oh, and she's found Sharlock right off the bat, using the outside to warp through the swamp cave. There is a very good strat. Avoid all those enemies in there that you may or may not want to fight.
But fortunately, after Harrison's managed to kill some guys and gain some levels, he's managed to find his way over to Cole as well, pick up his Death Necklace, and if he continues doing the same exploration route as Sparkover, could find himself over in Hawksness and getting the armor pretty soon as well. I just saw a 20 power increase for Sparkover in terms of strength, and so the levels at this point, magic is a little bit lagging, but the rest of the stats are just fine for where they are here in the early to mid game.
Right, and yeah, she's definitely in a position now where she's found a lot of stuff. She's gotten a lot of abilities here and can really dominate just about everything in this seed right now. The only thing that she's really lacking are the HPs and the MPs.
Yeah, and the magic points, given that you need Hurt More costs 5 to cast, she cast it at most 25 times, or 5 times with 26 magic points, means that there's only a few enemies that she'd be able to take out, whether it's the Axe Knight and Hawksness or just, Axe Knights or other difficult enemies that she's going to encounter on the overworld. And so that is kind of the one limiting factor, I think, right now in terms of long-term exploration without having to revisit a town.
Right, Harrison has found Hawksness. It looks like first enemy he fights is an AK-47, but he manages to get away. So he's going directly to that spike tile as well. Hopefully he's able to at least get a peek at it.
Hopefully more than a peek, so long as he manages to kill it, he'll pick up the armor, and then one of the advantages of Erdrick's armor is the fact that it allows you to heal 1 hit point with every step that you take. In another level or 2, he's going to pick up the heal spell, but in the meantime, just having that kind of passive healing from walking around is a super valuable resource, and he does manage to take out the Axe Knight, and so he will get his armor as well.
Wow, GG. The Hurtmore didn't even finish it off, so he got it, but it was tight. And then on the other screen, we saw Sparkover get to the coordinates. It's a very simple task once you have the armor. 82 north, 68 west. This sounds like a field trip.
Indeed, and so we might either see some players try to count out those steps, or perhaps go into the swamp cave and rescue the princess. Princess Gwaelin, once she's rescued and returned to the castle of King Horik here in Tantagel, will give you her love, which ends up being an item in your inventory that can tell you the distance that you are currently away from Tantagel Castle. We affectionately refer to it as the GPS, the Gwaelin Positioning System, which tells you just where you are, and it looks like Sparkover is perhaps going down to that swamp spike tile, both to check out the spike enemy, which is a blue dragon, and perhaps rescue the princess right now.
Yeah, with heal more. That's going to make this fight very difficult, but you can set it up, and it looks like that's what Sparkover's trying to do: get a few hits in, and then see if you can finish it off with a hurt more.
Yeah, without the stop spell command, that's probably the only strategy that's likely to work against the blue dragon, but unfortunately, the hurt more is only about 50-50 to land on the blue dragon. That one missed, and the blue dragon took Sparkover out. So we'll see if she goes back and gives it another try, or just decides to do a little bit more exploration first. Blue dragon also taking out Harrason, so things are kind of equal there.
And they both have that knowledge now. And of the enemies that you can hit pretty well with a hurt more, blue dragon kind of straddles that a little bit. Like, you can damage them, but it's risky, especially if you don't have heal more to kind of back it up. Okay, Sparkover fighting a wolf, which is still a good enemy for this level. And then Armored Knight, who has weak breath, which is a pleasant thing to see.
Oh, but one of her hurt mores misses. She just manages to survive the attack from the Armored Knight and is able to finish it off with another hurt more. So ends up spending 15 of her magic points just in that one battle, but 172 experience at this point in the game is still quite the nice prize. So Harrison's also picked up his coordinates from the old man in Cantlin, and so he also knows about the trek that they'll have to do to try to find the remaining buriable item. Both players have the harp, the Stones of Sunlight, and the Erdrick's Token are the other kind of story progress items that they need, as well as finding the two old men. I guess we've already seen the Jerk Cave, who's one of them, in order to trade them in to eventually get the Rainbow Drop to get into Charlotte Castle.
Yeah, and just so it isn't missed here, those Armored Knights also have Sleep, which is one of the worst spells that you want to see any Charlock enemy having.
So yeah, it's too early to forecast, but right now the agility is kind of in an average range for level 7 and 8. But yeah, we're definitely hoping by the time the players go into Charlock, if there are any of those Armored Knights in Charlotte Castle, hopefully the players will have agility up in the 80s to give them a chance to run, because sleep on an Armored Knight or on a Red Dragon can make Charlock very difficult at the end of the game. Looks like the Warlock has also shown up with Dragonlord 2 Breath, and so that manages to torch Sparkover and give her a free trip back to King Horik for lecture.
Yeah, we're still seeing a lot of enemies still sniping these guys. They don't quite have the vitality to really outlast too much, but in some sense that makes it so that those early grinds and stuff can really kind of help propel past this. But it's hard to ignore exploring at this point.
Alright, Harrison just picked up that big level with the 20 strength, and so now both of our runners are currently at level 8. Although Sparkover, if she manages to take out this green dragon, will advance to level 9. Honestly, if she gets like another 10 magic points, I might go back to the Axe Knight and Hawk's Nest and just try to grind up another level or two quickly, given the difficult monsters that they've seen. 18 hit points is actually going to help her a whole lot in terms of survivability, so maybe that goes the other way, and now she can afford to explore the overworld a bit more.
Absolutely, and the enemies they're finding in the overworld are not the worst. There's that blue dragon, which still isn't terribly appealing, but in finding Axe Knights, I saw a wizard, although I think the wizard had hurt more. So there's still some good enemies to fight out here, just while exploring.
And I don't know enough about the fine details of the numbers to know, with the player's defense power of 72, if they did use the repel spell, it feels like they'd be repelling just about everything except for Charlock monsters. And so I don't know that repel is necessarily something you want to use. It's kind of a trade-off. You might get very few monsters walking the overworld, but then the monsters that you do encounter might still be monsters that can kill you, as opposed to that you can kill. So it's interesting to see if the players choose different strategies. Harrison's obviously not repelling right now and has run into a Droll Magi. 58 experience is still pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how confident they are with what they're doing. I think as far as resource management goes, the repel is probably the better option just because they don't have a whole lot of spells in their repertoire that before they have to go back.
But we do see Sparkover headed back into Hawk's Nest. Unfortunately, she also ran into the Armored Knight that I'm not sure that she had seen in the Hawk's Nest just walking tiles before. Looked like she was trying to make her way over to the Axe Knight to try to farm some easy experience off of him. And so, yeah, the fact that even getting into Hawk's Nest can be difficult also makes the idea of farming the Axe Knight there a little bit less advantageous. And meanwhile, on Harrison's side, he's found some new locations, the town of Breckenry, and it looks like there is another cave.
Sleep on AK is 50%. That is something that you're going to have to keep in mind when you're going into Charlock, because you might need to throw some stop spells out. They're not the easiest enemy to run from, and potentially getting slept right there could just destroy a dive.
On the other hand, maybe the players will get lucky and there won't be any Armored Knights in Charlock. The other location that Harrison had found is Mountain Cave. This is another one of the caves that has 5 chests inside of it and just 2 floors, and so if he can manage to stay alive, he should be able to get a considerable advantage in terms of finding a bunch of chests to unlock.
In Sparkover getting level 10, it looks like it was a pretty decent boost to HP and MP, so it gives you a couple more Hurtmores that you can throw out.
But yeah, meanwhile, the knights that Harrison is encountering here in the Mountain Cave are also a pretty good value in terms of being always dying to a Hurtmore and giving a bunch of experience. A Rogue Scorpion is as well. And so the top floor of Mountain Cave here, which would have the same enemies as just walking around in the Swamp Cave, looks like it has a number of great Hurtmore targets just for getting 70 experience at a pop.
Yeah, Knights and Axe Knights. It's pretty much almost an ideal zone with where Harrison is right now. That's good. Sparkover just got the bad news about the Blue Dragon, which is bad news. Without that Healmore, that would actually be a pretty good target, considering how close it is.
I saw another Cursed Belt in Mountain Cave. I missed the first chest. Did you see it?
I think it was gold. All right, thanks, chat. Got my back there.
We've got the Fairy Flute. That's an item that'll put a golem to sleep. And so if there ends up being a golem on Spike Tile, perhaps in Charlock, that could be an important item.
And finding the flute loose increases the likelihood that the coordinates are going to have something that's actually useful. Not to say the flute isn't useful, but that means it's stones, token, or sword at this point.
And now Harrison is taking a slightly longer walk to the final chest. And here's the golem, and he's using the Fairy Flute, so it actually came in handy immediately to help ensure that he's going to be able to stay alive to get there.
Yes, very nice timing. And Sparkover is picking up the princess. Looks like that might be something on her mind to do next, considering how close the castle is, and she still has a lot of exploration to do, so exploring while looking for the coordinates is a pretty good combo there.
Indeed, not to mention just once she gets out of that Swamp Cave, which she can do immediately by casting the Outside spell, she can immediately just get a sense of where she is on the map, since Swamp North and Swamp South can connect to disparate spots on the map or even 2 different continents. Gwaelin's positioning system will tell us just how far she's traveled.
I wonder if she might just go straight through the swamp and then see what the coordinates are over there before she even starts walking. Considering how far it is, there's a good chance that the swamp is nearby. Alright, well, Harrison has finished up the mountain. We saw the flute, and that was kind of the winning item there, so maybe not a mountain cave to remember, necessarily.
But yeah, just as a quick recap for people who might have just gotten here, in terms of the important buriable items, we found the flute in Mountain Cave, we found the death necklace and coal, we found Erdrick's armor in Hawksness, and we found the silver harp in the Tangential Castle treasury, leaving the stones, the token, and Erdrick's sword as the 3 remaining items that could be on the Cantlin coordinates.
All right, and Harrison has found Breckenary, so quick, cheap rest in the inn, and then probably straight back out.
Yeah, as I recall, that was just outside of Mountain Cave that he just exited. And I didn't notice exactly how he chose to get there. It looked like it might have been west and then north, but I'm having trouble keeping track of the map with both runners.
Sparkover has another cave north of Swamp here. Let's see if they check that out.
Sparkover is staring longingly at the Sparkover bridge to that single tile that she can't get to due to the wall of Sharlock. She did, however, find Sunstone's Cave, or Free Stuff Cave, as we often call it, because you just get a free chest. In this case, it's only an herb.
Well, an herb is something, and that's one less thing that Harrison, or that either runner necessarily needs to check to get those key items.
And yeah, so in addition to the Cantlin coordinates, the main thing that's still outstanding that could have a lot of stuff is Garen's Tomb, which is another one of those dungeons that has 5 treasure chests inside of it. And since we haven't found the town of Garenham, I guess in the back of Garenham is either going to be Garen's Tomb or the Staff of Rain Cave, where you trade in the Silver Harp. I think those are the only 2 locations that could be left in the backside of Garenham.
Right, so Garenham is going to be the big luck change up here for exploration at this point.
And I didn't notice, once Sparkover came out on this side, did she try using Gwaylin's Love at all to figure out exactly where her coordinates are? Is she heading toward the coordinates?
I believe that is where she is heading. I think it was around 50-30, but it was in the right direction, so.
Alright, so it sounds like perhaps the Swamp Cave only brought you out a little bit farther to the north, and you still have a bit of a trek of walking here on the second continent. So it seems like the first continent's near the south edge of the map, and the second continent has a good stretch to the north.
It's also possible that's where Harrison is heading. No, actually he's going east instead of west, so that wouldn't be the right.
And he doesn't have Gwaylin's Love, and so he wouldn't even know if he was in the right spot at this point.
Oh, that is correct, yeah. Unless he is somehow counting very fast and in ways that I don't think anyone is capable of doing.
Alright, Sparkover took a peek into Mountain Cave, but then decided, you know what, if I'm really close to these coordinates, maybe I want to pick that up first before risking a death going inside another one of these dungeons to go after chests. It's an interesting bit of reasoning, but it looks like she was still going to be, I don't know, 30 or 40 squares away, so she's going to pop down into Mountain Cave, and given the enemies that we saw from Harrison's side, I think it's likely that she is going to live and be able to continue to explore.
And from what we've seen from Harrison already diving through Mountain Cave, we know that this is less than useful. You get the flute, which is information, and it's potentially useful in running away from the golems. And if you have a spike tile in Sharlock and have to fight him, it might be useful there. But for the most part, Mountain Cave is a bit of a sidetrack.
And yeah, just in terms of the big picture at this point, we're close to even on experience. Sparkover's just a couple hundred ahead right now. And we're relatively even on exploration, I feel like, as well. And so what started off with Sparkover getting a little bit of the jump on things has evened out pretty quickly in this match.
Yeah, I'd say right now, if Sparkover clears this and is able to get to the coordinates quickly, then and depending on what that happened, what is actually there, that could be really useful. If that's the sword. I mean, anything that's there is going to be critical, so it's something that Harrison really needs to do too. So it's not like you can skip the coordinates at this point. But that is you have the coordinates, and you have whatever's in Garenham kind of being the flashing beacons that the players are trying to find and get to right now.
Indeed. So Sparkover had no trouble with Mountain Cave. She might pop back into Breckenary to reset her magic, and then continue exploring toward those coordinates. And if Garenhan happens to be near the coordinates, then she will have a real routing advantage, having picked up Princess Gwaelin already and being able to do both of those things in one trip, rather than Harrison, who might have to explore and find Garenham and then come back and get the princess and explore again in order to go pick up whatever needed item might be there in those coordinates.
Right, and it looks like Harrison just got through that green dragon, pretty much out of resources at this point. So I think he's just trying to find something. He might end up going back to Breckenary. I don't know how far away from it he is now.
Yeah, at this point it might be just hoping to encounter Garenham for the rest stop, and it looks like, nope, he just circled back around to Breckenary. So if he wants to pop in, kind of surprised that he didn't, given how low his magic is going, pop back into town to reset the magic there.
He might be thinking it's time to just, take the death whenever it comes and go back and get Gwaelin, because I think he probably also has the same sense that he needs to get her pretty quick.
Yeah, that would make sense. And yeah, again, I don't have a good enough sense to know if we've searched all the first continent or where. It seems like obviously there's still more spots here on the northwest of what I'm presuming is the second continent through the swamp cave where Harrison is headed that hasn't been explored, but I don't have a good sense of where other remaining spots might be that Garenham could be hiding.
Well, it's wherever Sparkover is, which looks like over a couple of little bridges and a small island that she made sure to search. So she has found what could be the jackpot here in Garenham.
In the back of Garenham, there's 3 chests. Sparkover is going to find a dragon scale, which she already had purchased and equipped, some gold, and some wings.
So remind me, have we seen Rimmeldar yet? It is possible something important
We have
is in
not.
that one chest. So that is still a possibility. It's kind of an unfortunate one, but
Garen's tomb appears to be in the back of Garenham, and so 5 more chests here. And presumably the stones or the token is going to be one of them. Or possibly 2 of them.
And there is the stones right on the first floor.
So that's 2 of the 3 main quest items obtained for Sparkover. She finds some fairy water. And some more money. So the top floor of Garen's tomb is easy to get those 3 chests. The other 2 chests are spread out among some of the lower floors. She'll have to spend a magic key and dive down deeper into this particular little dungeon where who knows what monsters she'll encounter. The bottom floors of Garen's tomb have a separate monster set that we haven't encountered yet.
It's worthy of noting that Harrison got to Garenham about a minute later, so we're actually very tight as far as the exploration goes. It'll be interesting to see how the grave how both players handle the grave, and then if Sparkover is able to get in and out without taking a death, she's still in a very good position to find the coordinates, because it seems like they should be somewhat in this area.
Indeed, but I'm really excited to have a race that's staying this tight. We have basically one player who's hot on the tail of the other, both in terms of experience and in terms of the exploration.
All right, well, level 12 got us some MP, and that was about it.
Honestly, at this point, knowing that the end game is going to be able to grind the Axe Knight and Hawksness, I presume the Blue Dragon and the Swamp Cave actually isn't going to be that bad of a choice either. But basically, with a viable spike tile grinds available to the players, it does feel like now that they're strong enough basically to stay alive anywhere here in the overworld, it does feel like that this is just a rush to try to collect all the items and get to that endgame grind as fast as possible. Looked like the 4th chest in the Garen's tomb just had an herb.
Right, and this is where experience might come into play. I've noticed the difference we're seeing right now and how they're going through is Sparkover is pretty much just beelining to the next thing, and Harrison's getting a little bit distracted with some other stuff like item management and things like that. So we've seen a little bit of a time discrepancy here, but it's nothing that can't be overcome.
But yeah, I think that speaks to when you have lots and lots of races under your belt or whatever. Just being able to automatically kind of make these small decisions definitely gives you an advantage, and Sparkover's being very efficient with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and it looks like the enemies in the grave have been pretty cooperative. Nothing that has been too risky, no reds, no AK-47s. In fact, this might have been a great place to grind about 3 levels ago.
Yeah, a lot of these mid-range hurt more targets that give a fair amount of experience and always go down to a single hurt more, like the Magic Wyvern and the Spectre. Just a Cursed Belt in the bottom. Wow. So I guess that means one of our items, the sword, has to be in Charlock because the... Oh, there's still the Remolder chest. I forgot about that.
Yep, so we have, 33% chance the sword can be outside somewhere. That's kind of making it very vague. There's actually a lot higher chance it's in Charlock, but it's 50-50 for the search spot, so...
But yeah, the only places at this point that the token could be hiding are either the search spot or the Remolder chest. If it's not in the Remolder chest, or sorry, if it is in the Remolder chest, then that means the sword's in the search spot. And if it's not, then that means the sword is either in the Remolder chest or in one of the chests at the bottom of Charlock.
And as far as exploration goes, it looks like we're still missing Rimuldar and the Rainstaff Cave.
Correct.
Those are the Staff of Rain Cave is necessary. I don't know if either of these players will want to go into Charlock before they find Rimuldar, just because the risk of that being going all the way into Charlock looking for the sword is a lot greater. Although the attack power isn't terrible at this point.
Yeah, the fact that both players have a flame sword and that the strength is reasonable at this level makes the fact that the sword is still missing not necessarily super urgent. It's something that you could pick up, at the end of the game pretty easily, just making a detour if it does turn out to be in Charlock. Or possibly, if the strength keeps going up and up, this could be one of those seeds where you could just defeat the Dragonlord just using the Flame Sword and not need to pick up Erdrick's Sword. It's always hard to tell, but there's so much variability in the stat gains in each of these different seeds in this rando.
Right, we would have needed, we would still need quite a bit of strength to be able to pull that off, but it is on the radar at this point. And again, the experience difference is very close here. Sparkover is running from the Star Wyverns, who are haunting her every step right now.
Just the same jerkbird chasing her around over and over again. Oh, but that just circled back around to back. Okay, so now I've got a better sense of how the map fits together.
It looked like Garenham was reasonably close to where the coordinates were. I didn't see exactly what popped up when she looked, but it might be on some sort of overhang. So they might have to go around and above to get to them.
But yeah, at this point, that's still obviously Charlock's main advantage. Is she's got a very good sense of exactly where the coordinates are, and she has the GPS in hand. So she's going to be able to track that down quicker, and it's basically going to be something that you want.
And again, the Star Wyverns will not leave her alone. Just every step here in this desert just seems to have one ready and present.
Well, fortunately, they have enough survivability that despite the harassment and despite the fact that it's going to whittle down her magic a little bit, she will be able to get away and continue. And meanwhile, it looks like Harrason is just kind of discovering the dead ends that are at this corner of the map. Staff of Rain Cave still outstanding, so is Remolder.
Yep, and yeah, you start to wonder if what else he's still looking for, but I believe Sparkover is about to get the coordinates here.
That was pretty good estimation for her to do first check in a little while. She's just like 3 and 3 away or something. So here she will pick up Erdrick's token.
It's good to find, but that's maybe not what you were hoping was there. So yeah, at this point we're just missing Erdrick's sword and the Staff of Rain Cave. We know the Jerk Cave is right next to Tantagel, so there's definitely not much you have to do to find that.
But yeah, just trying to estimate, it feels like it's going to cost Harrison probably at least 3 minutes to rescue the princess and walk back out to those coordinates at some point in the future, so that set him back.
Right, that was very heads up of Sparkover to get Gwaylin when she did, and to have that line up generally with where she, or excuse me, to have Garanham line up generally with where she was searching has been pretty fortuitous for her.
And yeah, deciding when it makes sense to do the early princess rescue, I feel like, is one of the main kind of macro routing strategic decisions that the players can make. And so yeah, that did turn out to be a veteran move. That said, despite the fact that Harrison has some catching up to do in terms of doing that homework, it is the case that he still maintains an experience lead, although it's tenuous.
And then we see probably the greatest and worst sort of RNG here, with Sparkover getting slept by an AK-47 and stuck for what I think was 4 torturous rounds of fire breath.
Rando gonna rando.
I'm not sure if they fully searched the main continent yet, but she certainly seems to think so. She's going right back, unless she's deciding to grind on the blue, which I imagine is unlikely. Right, yeah, it's usually a pretty good indicator if somebody is planning on doing that, if you see them cast Radiant or throw a torch up as soon as they walk into that cave, because it's a little tricky to get to the spike tile in that cave.
And as pointed out by chat, Harrison has rescued the princess, but he has run himself just about out of MP, so he's going to have to make a walk all the way back out to the south end of this cave in order to bring the princess safely back, and he's going to have to escape the blue dragon along the way.
Right, that's the trickiest part here. Don't get got by the blue dragon. But contrary to what you might think, holding Gwaylin does not impact your stats or your ability to run in any fashion. So just the fact that he has her shouldn't impact anything.
And if a player does die while they're holding Gwaylin, she just somehow magically teleports back into her cell in the swamp cave, and you could rescue her again in a future life.
All right, and slightly noteworthy, but Harrison did have the experience lead there for a little bit. I think we missed the level, but the hit points are now getting into fun range.
Yeah, the agility is lagging a little bit, but these are actually some of the most average, normal-looking stats in terms of the progression that we've seen throughout the tournament, based on what I can recall.
Right, we need to fax this stat setup to some of our players.
Hello, Remolder. Sparko has found it. Let's see what's inside the chest. Is it the sword, or is it something that tells us that the sword's going to be in Charlock?
My guess is an herb. Oh, torch.
It was a torch.
The Rimeldar lottery strikes out once again.
Alright, well that makes the endgame even more exciting. Imagine if the Armored Knights with their sleep spell are on the bottom floor of Charlock, and in addition to the long walk that the players already have to make, they have to make an extra long walk to go into the treasury and try to pick up the sword out of one of those chests.
Right. I wonder, I would think that now the impetus, well, it'll still have to find the Staff of Rain Cave, wherever that is. But we're thinking it's probably grind and go before that, and maybe get the sword, as your last kind of thought before you finish it up.
Indeed.
Especially if you're going after the Axe Knights, which we assume... Oh, look, it's the Staff of Rain.
Okay. Sparko is now officially in grind and go pick up the sword and go.
Right, and that was it wasn't too hard to find. You just had to finally get there. So got the staff, got the drip, and now we're just looking for some stats.
So yeah, on our nice little tracker there at the bottom, most of the stats have been colored white. As they turn orange, they're kind of in the conditionally good to go. Once they turn green, they'll be good to go in terms of the stats that you typically need in order to defeat the Dragonlord. And so you'll want some mixture of green and orange in order to be strong enough to take on the final boss of the game. But before you even get to the final boss, there's 7 basements of Charlock. That's a long, potentially tortuous grind through a bunch of enemies, and so it looks like Sparko is going to go check out what's inside Charlotte Castle, get a feel for the monster set, and perhaps try to pick up the sword in a separate dive from actually going to try to win the game.
Alright, and this is an interesting move. I think when you've been looking for something for so long, it's something that you want to get as soon as possible, but the sword doesn't necessarily help with your grind. So there's that. Maybe she is a bit concerned about what sort of enemies are in here once they get a taste, because we've already seen sleepy AKs, and that could be a big problem.
I agree. If we didn't have to worry about the sleepy armored knights, the scouting report wouldn't be as useful, and it might make sense just to try to go grind one of the spike tile monsters they already know about. But having the information about whether there's going to be a number of armored knights here could change your strategy in terms of if you have a questionable level, if you're strong enough to go, you'd prefer not to if there's lots of armored knights and red dragons. Whereas if you happen to have already scouted Charlock and know there's not, then you might be ready to go on a borderline level.
Alright, now we're seeing the reds are a little bit friendly. We got Stop Spell. Well, Stop Spell and Hurt More. But the Hurt More is going to do just a little bit more than their normal hit, so that isn't too concerning.
Yeah, so it's mostly in terms of Charlotte going to be about whether or not we see armored knights. I guess another thing that's nice about doing this early dive for the sword is just in case the sword ends up in that 7th chest, the vanilla chest, where it's located in the vanilla game, sometimes referred to as the judge's table. Sparko might go and try to swing by and pick that up, or just do the treasury this time around and pick up the sword on a second dive when she's going to win, depending upon its location.
Right. At this point, I'm struggling a little bit to... I think Harrison's just trying to finish up some searching on the main continent. Still probably looking for the Staff of Rain Cave before he jumps out towards the coordinates.
But yeah, the fact that he's walking around near the castle and getting slime encounters, like, I'd at least want to be repelling here. Like, at this point, repelling... the enemy set that you're going to see is mostly enemies that you can either run from or take out, and so I'd prefer to have repel on all the time. But in any case, he's going to check out the coordinates, discover that he needs to make that long trek back over to the northwest coast, and have a little bit of walking and searching in store for him.
And some unfortunate luck there for Sparkover. It appears that Stonemen are in Charlock, and they have sleep. Not an enemy that you want to have sleep, because they hit pretty hard.
But very useful information for her. She kind of did get the recon information that she wanted, even if she didn't manage to pull a sword out of that place. And now, based on where she's walking, I think perhaps she's going to head over to Hawksnest and start grinding some Axe Knights. So get your popcorn.
Alright, and with enough Hurtmores for 12 casts, probably won't work out exactly that way, but that's still plenty of effort to be able to get in here to get a level, maybe 2?
Yeah, the next level's at 5625, I believe, and then 7500 experience after that for levels 14 and 15, so she's definitely going to get 14 here. We'll see how far she manages to get into 15. It seems extremely unlikely that level 14, or even level 15, is going to be strong enough to defeat the Dragonlord just yet.
Incorrect. Our strength isn't lagging too much. The agility and the MP right now are the really scary numbers, but low agility is survivable. It's just not pleasant.
Especially not when there's 2 sleepy monsters in Charlock, who are both part of the Group 4 enemy set that's relatively hard to run from.
The fact that we have the silver along with Erdrick's armor makes that helps out a little bit different, or a little bit, so that that extra defense against the Dragonlord. It doesn't help get away from any of the enemies you're going to fight along the way. But...
And I'd see the comment in the chat that Harrison was running low on keys. I'm not sure if he ran out completely or just realized that he needed to purchase some more, but here he is making the walk through a molder to pick up keys again. So this is another minor distraction that's just going to be another time cost.
Right, but then also, I think he pretty much has to check this since he saw it. And I mean, we saw Sparkover do it too. The fact that he ran out of keys is unfortunate, but it's... Oh, he left, so he has to use another key, but that shouldn't matter. So it costs him 3 keys and a bit of time to get that very valuable torch, which he is going to keep.
And it sounds like level 14 came up basically empty in some of the key stats. 0 power and 0 MP. There's someone in the chat who loves it. So yeah, while Harrison is getting these errands done, Sparkover is going to start racing ahead in terms of the experience lead. And so she's already gone from slightly behind to 1,300 ahead. The Death Warp is going to cost her a little bit, but it only takes, I think, probably less than a minute. Let's see, she's at 53:50 on the timer as she walks out of Tanagel. I wonder how long it takes to get to Hawksness.
It doesn't look like it takes much longer than it would to get to the Swamp Cave. So even though the blues give a little bit more experience, the amount of time it takes to kill them is much longer. So this is definitely the way to go.
That said, if there's a free blue offering itself up for 180 experience here in the overworld, Sparkover seems happy to try to take the opportunity. I thought she didn't hit him hard enough that first time. I think she only got like a 17 on the swing, and so the hurt more wasn't enough to finish it off. It heal moored all the way back up to full, and she just decides to run away. Discretion's sometimes the better part of valor. Or, another way to put it, it's a race. You gotta go fast.
Right, and also important to note that she is still lacking Stop Spell, as is Harrison. So the... Oh, Green Dragon.
The no effect, unlucky, missing the hurt more on the Green Dragon, although I think it is 1 in 8 that they can defend against that spell. Just like some dodge chances, the Green Dragon can be sometimes a surprisingly wily enemy.
Yeah, just so happens that the path to Hawksness is probably more dangerous than the grind in Hawksness.
Yeah, we'd seen the Armored Knight take people out just on walking inside the town as well. And here's a Stone Man that we now know has sleep along the way. So yeah, it's definitely the case that getting to the Hawksnest tile is a tough bit. Once you get there, then you're going to gain another, 2,000 experience in short order.
Right. And you saw that Stone Man there. She managed to run from it pretty quickly. She now has sleep. We got sleep at 14. So you do have the tool that is most effective against the Stone Man. And now Harrison is getting caught up too. And the wizard is harassing Sparkover. That grind and everything, the advantage that she's had is just getting whittled away a little bit by little bit from this nonsense.
I can't remember if the Star Wyvern had an ability, but does every other Sharlock enemy have an ability? Stonemen have sleep. Armored Knights have sleep. The wizard had hurt more and heal more, I think. Star Wyverns have heal more. The Axe Knight that we were fighting here, did it have anything?
I think the Axe Knights are just vanilla. I haven't seen anything fancy out of them.
And then the Red Dragon had hurt more.
Hurt more and Stop Spell.
Right, and Stop Spell. So yeah, we have a bunch of ability-full monsters in Sharlock. And so just as I was trying to recount everything, that's information that the runners need to keep in mind. In the meantime, Harrison did manage to finally find the coordinates, pick up the token. And so he'll be able to finish off the homework by swinging by the jerk pretty easily. Looks like he's returning perhaps to do it right now. No, it looks like maybe he's just going to go right over into the Hawksness grind as well.
Right. He knows that the jerk cave is nearby. It won't take much effort at all to get that. So doing that now or later shouldn't matter. And just getting those levels, he's probably feeling a little bit behind based off of having to rewalk that entire path.
Have we seen a werewolf this seed?
I have not seen one. I am not sad about that.
Yeah, that's the other Sharlock monster, just in terms of trying to think through all the Sharlock monster's abilities. That said, well, yeah, the player's agility still is not great, and so werewolves could still be a threat in Sharlock as well.
Sparkover is getting that fun 1 in 16 hurt more block luck there against the Axe Knight.
It always feels bad when it happens, but at the same time, when you end up, grinding these guys for 3 or 4 levels, it seems like these players are destined to do, you're going to see it a few times because you're killing so many of them.
She's choosing to walk out to gain resources. I can't remember. I think Cantlin's pretty close by, correct?
Yeah, I don't think things are more than like 2 screens away. And yeah, it might just be because of the fact that the walk from the castle encountered so many bad enemies that maybe she's trying to re-avoid that. But I think the way Sparkover maps, she just tends to draw a topology, kind of a general map, as opposed to a very detailed map that someone like Met's Cardinality might do. And so maybe that she underestimated just how far the walk is to get back to a town rather than death warping.
Right. There's the interesting math there. How many steps towards and back versus just leaving the castle and so on. I don't know. It looks like Cantlin's about halfway, so it seems like a pretty reasonable wager.
So yeah, at this point, the runners have to be starting to think about the fact that they know the sword is in Sharlock. There's 6 chests in the treasury and 1 in the other spot, kind of deep in the heart of the castle. They, right now, it seems like in terms of strength, are going to need to pick it up in order to be able to win at the correct level rather than grind a bunch of extra levels. And they know that there are some Sharlock monsters with sleep. And so all of this potentially is rolling around in their head, trying to figure out when is going to be the right time to take the risk to try to go down and do things. So we'll see what the stats give here at level 15 shortly for Sparkover.
Correct. And I'm going to reevaluate my previous thought. It is definitely, I think, faster to death warp than it is to walk out. But there's reasons why you might not want to do that too, especially if you think that zone going into Cantlin is worse than the one after.
All right, level 15 coming up here for Sparkover, but it looks like it didn't give any more strength. And so that definitely looks like it's going to be the stat that will be holding us back. Even if they were to upgrade to Erdrick's Sword, that's another plus 12 attack power, which would bring a level 15 player up to 115. It just occurred to me the Fighter's Ring is still also missing, so that's also going to be in Sharlock. That might be one of the reasons that Sparkover chose to do the dive earlier, knowing that she had 2 different items that were going to be picked up, perhaps trying to grab the vanilla spot first to ensure that she was going to get plus 14 rather than plus 12 out of a Sharlock dive.
Quite possible. It didn't seem like she, didn't really leave on her own terms. The Stone Man kind of saw to that, but I'm not sure just the way things were going if she was going to make it without some.
That could be an interesting question to ask during the interview about that first Sharlock dive in terms of what information and or item she was hoping to get out of it.
Right, and the Fighter's Ring itself is a lot more useful when the attack is low. With Erdrick's Sword, once they get that, they're looking at 115 attack power, or Sparkover is currently. So that is still not even really in the range of where you need to be.
Yeah, especially given the low magic points that we have and hit points that still aren't high enough to bring the Death Necklace into play, you probably are going to need somewhere in the order of like 132 attack power, unless they get a whole bunch more of some of the other stats. So I would expect that level 16 is also still unlikely. So we'll be here for a few more minutes grinding these axes. And it does look like Sparkover is trying to do the walk back again rather than taking the death warp. given that she already has a silver shield, like she doesn't need to save her gold for any reason. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is doing her any favors in terms of taking this extra walking time versus just trying to kill 1 or 2 more Axe Knights before taking a death.
And Harrison's doing the same, but Harrison remembered where Cole was. It looked like Sparkover just missed it, and Cole's slightly closer. So this might end up being might be a little bit beneficial for him. Probably won't matter a whole lot. Well, I guess we'll see. Sparkover left quite a bit earlier than Harrison did, and only beat him back to Hawksness by a few steps. So
yeah, if this turns into a long grind, even a difference like that could start having, a few seconds during each round start adding up. Right now, it seems like Harrison's about 1,400 experience behind, and so we'll see how that progresses.
And then, of course, actually getting to the Axe Knight without getting hit by an Armor Knight definitely helps as well, too.
Yeah, there's still plenty of RNG both in Hawksness and in Charlock. These players are close enough that we still definitely have a competitive race here. Charlock could easily be an equalizer, so anything could happen.
What will be interesting is if we end up getting a level that puts us in a maybe like a questionable go time status to see if one or both of the runners go or if they both wait.
As we settle into this grind, now is perhaps a good time to call out the fact that there will be a couple more races later tonight. On Randomadia, Tilo Tilo is going to face off with Nest Cardinality in an annual tradition where they always draw each other. And that's going to be at 9 o'clock Eastern. And then Big Slamu and Janice Seal have a race at 10:30 on Randomadia too.
It's awesome. It's definitely something I want to see, both of those matches.
Yeah, it's a fun time of year. Right now I have the extra time to watch a lot of the matches, and it's been fun to see just all the variability and all the new faces of people coming in this year and a bunch of interesting situations.
Right. I did manage to catch part of every single race last week, and so maybe I'm just scouting a little bit for the competition. But it's interesting. I don't think there was any player I saw where I was like, oh wow, like they absolutely positively are going to sweep the tournament, or also to say there's somebody who can't win a match here. We have different tiers of competition, but I think there's a lot of, even without the randomness that comes into play here, there is a lot of chances for a lot of different players.
Yeah, this is a rando that I feel like most anyone can pick up. And so if you want to come join us, we'll put a link in the chat. It's a very friendly community or whatever if we're trying to pick up and learn the game. There's some very good resources, both written and lots of races to watch in order to learn a bit of the strategy.
Right, and I mean, just as kind of an example, I know there's a few new runners in this tournament, myself included, who haven't really been playing this game that long. Been watching it forever, but it's once you get into some of the nuts and bolts of it and figure out the pathing, it's a lot of fun, and you kind of just smooth right into the whole situation.
We kind of glossed over it. Sparkover picked up level 16 there, and it did not have a whole lot to offer. So we're still pretty much in the same position we were before. The levels are still relatively close together in terms of the amount of experience that they need. The next level up for Sparkover is level 17, which is going to come at 12,000. Level 18 after that will be 14,250. So it's still going to be the case that just, one more round with the Axe Knights and she should be able to pick up another level. And so things will still move reasonably quickly. In another 3 or 6 minutes, hopefully we'll see the level that we're looking for.
Right. Harrison did go back to Cantlin, but I think he specifically was looking for herbs. So in that case, that makes some sense. I don't think that there's a stop on the way to Charlock that has
I
them.
wonder, Harrison still has a bunch of stuff cluttering his inventory. I didn't notice if Sparkover, she tried to pick up herbs in Cantlin once and was topped off. I didn't notice if she picked up fairy water, but I wonder if the runners will take fairy water, because it is the case that if you're low on attack power and kind of borderline for fighting the Dragonlord, having fairy water so that you can throw at the Dragonlord. In this version of the randomizer, you can throw the fairy water at an enemy, and it does like the hurt spell, 916 damage, but no enemy is immune. Other than the metal slime for reasons. And so 9 to 16 against the Dragonlord is comparable to someone who had 133 attack power. So if you're kind of in the 120s on attack power, using some fairy waters to attack the Dragonlord can be a good strategy.
Absolutely. And we're sort of in that range right now. This next level, if Sparkover gets it, strength or a lot of hit points will definitely help a bit. Again, we're looking at 40 on top of strength with the sword, so that's 117 at attack power right now. If you can get into Death Necklace range, it's another 10. And I think the general equivalency of fairy water to attack is around 134 to 135 attack power. Also, to mention, along with what I said about new players learning the game, we have to give thanks to Archfield Monk for what is essentially a treatise on how to play Dragon Warrior Randomizer with all sorts of information. Our restreamer has done a tremendous amount of work in getting all of that together. A very easy to read and very understandable guide with pictures.
Yeah, I knew Archfield was going to be relatively expert to the game when I was watching him in, I don't remember if it was last year's tournament, it was his first tournament. But yeah, in his first tournament match, he did a dark walk of Tablet Cave, which is not something you do without knowing your stuff. And I was like, okay, this is somebody who knows his stuff with this game, even if he's new to the scene.
Yeah, if he had not put in that sort of effort, I imagine that I would have lost a day or two just digging into stuff. And hey, X-Night information, they are boring, but that boring is good.
Boring, but good. Yeah, I learned, even though, I already had like 400 matches under my belt or whatever, like I learned a thing or two reading through Archfield's guide, because especially when it comes down to the numbers and some of the details about which monsters really aren't worth fighting, that's kind of the weakest part of my game. I still don't know, the maximum hit points for a lot of these monsters. I just have a good gut feel for where the ranges are and what I need to do.
Oh, and the death on the way back home for Sparkover, but that really won't matter a whole lot. It's still a very quick walk right back to Hawksness.
Harrison taking a moment to study the stats, but basically at this point, with the strength where it is, until that gets higher, they're not going anywhere.
That's a very good point, Tilo. The poltergeists are just a very unpleasant surprise. You're like, oh, they're weak. That's fun. Nope, that's not how it works.
They're somewhat dodgy. They have more hit points than other enemies who offer the same amount of experience. They're, one of these least appealing monsters to go after.
It would be one thing if we reliably had hurt early, but since the hurt spell is as random as everything else, then they just become a bit of a frustration.
Indeed.
All right, so it looks like the experience lead for Sparkover is actually slightly increased. Just going back and forth, it's still around 1,500, but you would be hoping if Harrison could catch up a little bit here if you were him, but it's just not coming up right that way.
Harrison did have the magical exactly 10,000 gold, though, when he just took an in-trip there at Cole. So that's a fun number.
That's the sort of money that gets the respect from the goldmen.
All right, but we are coming up on level 17 for Sparkover. This is the first one that I think really has a chance of possibly turning the tide. Let's see, 12 attack power, 24 hit points, 36 magic points. It just became go time, just like that.
Absolutely. You're looking at Again, that's 129 attack power, but you can also, with the sword, but you can also equip the Death Necklace. That's another 10. That is definitely something that's going to scare DL2.
And yeah, given that you can equip the Death Necklace, she's got more than 86 defense power, which means whether the Dragonlord 2 bites or uses the breath, can't hit her for more than 48. Yeah, with all that attack power, she will have some magic points that she can spend during the Sharlock dive in order to make sure that she makes it all the way down and is able to grab the sword. At this point, the ring probably becomes optional, though the sword is still pretty mandatory to pick up. And so we'll see. Now is a good time to ask chat to get your guesses for where Erdrick's sword is going to be. There's 6 chests in the Treasury of Sharlock that we often call, like the Pyramid Game, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, and 300, as well as the judges table for the one that's off to the side. So get your guesses in where the sword is going to pop up, and we'll see if Sparkover can get down there and give us her answer.
And the thing about the fighter's ring is that you're probably going to find it. Like, it's very likely that unless one of the items is in the judges table, you're going to find it right next to the sword. So it's almost certain that you're going to wind up just putting that one on too, I think.
If the first chest you opened was the sword, would you continue looking for the fighter's necklace? I guess it depends on how many magic points you're sitting there at the bottom with, perhaps.
I think I would, because it's 2 attack power for like 20 seconds of effort at the most.
Did I just call it the fighter's necklace rather than the fighter's ring?
You know did. I wasn't going to call you out for that, but I
appreciate your kindness.
I think in the past I've eschewed the fighter's ring a lot, because it's like you get the dragon scale, you're like, oh cool, I have the dragon scale, that's great. You get the fighter's ring, and people are like, ooh, the fighter's ring. And the difference between the two is pretty negligible, although attack is always a little bit better than defense.
Yeah, and like you just called it out earlier, when the attack's in the 120s, like those 2 extra attack power can really end up mattering. And yeah, the Death Necklace basically has made it so that it's not going to matter nearly as much, but this is still a place where, you know, if Sparkover burns if Sparkover burns a heal more or 2 during the dive down, perhaps getting caught up by a stoneman like she's encountering right now, then who knows what might happen.
And unfortunately for Harrason, I think he's like 2 or 3 Axelites short of the level, having to leave. That's not the best. If you know you could fight something along the way, that might be worth it, but that's only if you know 17 is go mode.
Well, he's out of magic points, and so that's sometimes just how the cookie crumbles. Maybe he'll get super lucky and be able to kill another green dragon mysteriously on the way to Cole here.
And Sparkover's walk down as well. I was just going to say it's going pretty comfortable, and now we see an AK.
Commentator curse. I didn't do it. It was Aaron.
Is it really a curse if I was just thinking about it?
To my eyes, it was the moment you opened your mouth about it that basically the Armored Knight showed up and put her to sleep. Fortunately, she got away. Unfortunately, there's Red Dragon down here.
Well, the Red Dragons, they're gonna keep you in the battle, but they aren't crazy dangerous, because they have Hurt More, they have Stop Spell, and the Hurt Mores are probably doing less damage than their attacks would.
And with an agility of 75, like, you're less than a coin flip to be able to run from the Red Dragon, but at least it's still plausible. So if you get 3 run chances, like, one of them is likely to go. But I don't know. People feel the way they do about run chances and agility in this game, so I won't say more. All right, but we're heading up to the treasury. Let's find out where the sword's going to be.
I'll say, of all things, to get caught up on a Golem is not what you want to see, but she does have the ability to instantly run away from it if she needs to. By instantly, I mean 20 seconds later.
Yeah, Fairy Flute is good to have in your back pocket. If she's got a fair amount of hit points, I would just try to run from the Golem rather than spend the time. But if she gets hit by the Golem, then I would use the Flute to put it to sleep and then run away. A little bit more slowly, but it's a good insurance play. She's going to use some herbs after taking some damage, or at least use one of them. And now we're going to find out where the sword is. Well, it seems that chat is getting their money's worth. We have the fighter's ring and the final chest down here in the treasury, which means Erdrick's sword is in its vanilla location. Sparkover needs to walk back up through like 4 floors to go pick it up, and then walk back down and try to get down the Dragonlord. Will she be able to do it in one run?
I don't know, and it's not quite as far as I thought it was to get to, but it's not like it's along the way. So thankfully she got all those extra torches, so doesn't have to wander in the dark.
Meanwhile, Harrason has gotten all of his things together, and it looks like... did he get up to level 17? I wasn't paying enough attention, and the tracker still shows him at 16.
I think he did. I'm pretty sure I saw him go back into...
Yeah,
there
okay,
we go.
good.
So,
because, having the extra for the dive is going to be super useful.
So it's unlikely that he can catch up to Sparkover just straight out here. Oh, and he does not have a torch, which does not seem positive at all for him. He's also used a little bit of magic already.
Yeah, I wonder if, and it might be in his plan anyway, but I wonder if only having to cast Radiant might cause him to divert to the judges table chest first, which is where we know the sword is actually going to be, just because it kind of like saves a little bit on the Radiant spells, choosing to do that route versus the route that Sparkover's taken. So we'll see what happens with Harrason.
Yeah, I think for a newer player, and this might, again, be speaking from my own experience, I still have never thought about checking the judges table first, just because of how I don't know the path, and a lot of times I'm doing Sherlock in the dark. So, oh, and he gets introduced to the Sleepy Stoneman as well.
Well, I know Tilo has written a short treatise on when to consider doing the judges table first or trying to pick it up along the way when there's 1 or 2 items outstanding, which could include the fighter's ring as it did today. But in any case, it seems like Sparkover did the up and down and has made it back down to the bottom floor. So right now, it seems like she's very much in control of the end of this race, but Harrason is hot on her heels.
Right, she's definitely in position to win, but we still have the spike tile coming up, and we know that there are a couple of encounters that can just send you home, and there's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, an Armored Knight or Stone Man could definitely make things exciting. And it looks like Harrason is going down to the bottom first, and so he's going to get the bad news, yeah.
All right, Golem, as long as you're willing to put in a little bit of time, this is not a difficult fight at all.
And if the Golem stays asleep, it's especially potentially not going to be a difficult fight. Finally woke up after 3 turns, but Sparkover's already done enough damage. Well, that didn't quite finish it off. The Golem can have up to 153 hit points, but I think as low as somewhere in the 1-teens or 120s.
Yes, theoretically, the Golem can have more hit points than the Dragonlord, which is kind of fun to know.
Sparkover was not up to her maximum hit points and chooses to put on the Death Necklace before fighting Dragonlord 1, which means her hit points will drop down by max 25% down to just over 100. I'm not sure the exact number until it pops up in the tracker or on her screen. But she'll have the extra attack power for fighting the Dragonlord, and it looks like she still has plenty of magic. And so, barring disaster, I think this should go well for her.
Yeah, definitely the favorite in this fight. Although, okay, yeah, we haven't seen the attack power added on there. So at 141, yeah, definitely the favorite here. It would take some really unfortunate luck to not get through.
Well, she already is in a bit of trouble against Dragonlord 1 here. Did at least get the stop spell here at the end, so that she'll be able to advance into Dragonlord 2 fight without immediately having to take a heal more, unless she gets back attacked, which she does not. So, doesn't lose one of the heal mores right at the start of the fight. And should only take about 10 swings or so to defeat the Dragonlord, maybe 11. And so she should have enough heals to do it.
All right, yeah, pretty standard fare here. The attacks are going I haven't seen anything particularly bad yet. So as long as she can manage her business, I think this one is this Dragonlord is going to bow down.
And Harrison, despite having to spend a little bit of magic on the way down, still has, looks like 12 Hyomores in his back pocket. And so he'll be picking up the sword around the time that Sparkover is finishing, it looks like. But we'll just be a couple minutes behind, it looks like. This has been a tight race for pretty much the entirety.
Correct. The early Hawksness and the early luck in exploration really helped push Sparkover into the lead, and she did an excellent job maintaining that throughout. Here, there were some times like the dive where there was some information gained, but that gave Harrison a little bit of time to catch up. But she's been in charge of this seed pretty much from the onset.
And yeah, honestly, the early Princess Rescue might make up most of the difference in the time. The fact that Sparkover didn't need to take the extra trip out there in order to go pick up the princess definitely saved her, I think, like on the order of a couple of minutes or something. And that's going to be close to the difference in this match, it looks like. But just like that, down goes the Dragonlord. Thou hast found the Ball of Light. She has the return spell, so she'll be able to warp back home. She'll have to get a little bit of a shortcut scene with the princess right before finishing the race. But moments from now, we will find out our official race time for Sparkover, who's going to chalk up her first win out of the 5 rounds of the Swiss here in the opening match of Week 2.
All right, and GG's to Sparkover. A very well done race. Very solid. A lot of good decisions, especially again on that access to the princess early on, and led her to well-deserved victory.
And Harrison has run a fine race as well. Could just be guessing like 3 minutes from finishing this out unless something bad happens to him along the way.
It's hard to find too much fault in what he did in this race. There were some things that maybe you might have known better if you'd have done this or that, but there really wasn't anything where you were looking at what he was doing and thinking that doesn't make sense.
I agree. I think he ran a solid race. There were a number of kind of short moments of indecision where he was kind of like retracing his steps or starting to walk somewhere and then walking somewhere else, as well as kind of spending a bit of extra time thinking about his stats or thinking about his items. But in terms of just like the macro view or whatever, like ran a fine race, and it's going to show in terms of the close times here.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's, where he was when Sparkover is finishing, he has to be not, thinking, oh, shoot, what did I do this? What did I do that? But going right into the Dragonlord, still with the way the fight is setting up, looking to be a heavy favorite going in, assuming he can get there, of course.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Harrison knows about like all the runners of this community, but Sparkover is definitely back on SRL days, I know, like been in the top 5 in terms of overall runners. And so if you are on your way, 2 floors away from the Dragonlord when you see your opponent finish the race, you can't feel too bad about that when you're fighting against one of the best.
Absolutely, he's had a couple of very good opponents in the middle of this, and he's
yes. This is a very tough draw for Harrison at the start, with one of the previous win-overs in the first round, and then Sparkover here in the second.
Yeah, it's always fun to enter a tournament and see yourself going up against the defending champion.
That's fun, like the Red Dragon fun, right?
Right, but the good thing is that the nature of this tournament is Swiss, so all you have to do to have a shot to qualify is win 1 match. Obviously, you want to win more than that, but it means that if this were a double elimination, he would have just gotten walked straight out. But now he's still got a chance to do some things and to learn more about the game and to just kind of show off his ability and experience to everybody.
It looks like we are now joined in the booth by Sparkover. Sparkover, how are you feeling about this race? And don't forget your push to talk.
So GG Sparkover, can you hear us?
right, sorry about that. I should be good now. I had different settings because my wireless headphones died on me last night, but thank you.
Yeah, good race. Harrison is just finishing it up right now against the Dragonlord, but what are your overall thoughts?
I was mad nervous after I did my whole reset and beginning gold grind and then finding Hurtmore at level 2. Like, oh my gosh.
It seemed like with all the good items that were available there in Cantland, it was still going to be worth it. But yeah, Hurtmore does kind of change the calculus in terms of just how much stuff you need to get. And so, plus having to reset like 4.5 minutes in or whatever. But
Yeah.
Harrison did the exact same thing.
I wrote a little note down just for the interview's sake. At roughly 9 minutes in, I let out a very because that was when I saw Hurtmore as level 2, but it turned out okay. I mean, even if you get Hurtmore right away, having like a stronger weapon and, you know, armor and whatnot, it's good.
Yeah, armor especially. You can go without the weapon a lot of the times when you don't have Hurtmore, but yeah, having, you know, the Silver Shield and some very good armor under your belt definitely helps things. And it also helped that you got Repel when Hurtmore came along as well. And so after getting a couple levels under your belt, if you wanted to select higher enemies, you could. That said, with the enemy set that was on this overworld, it was a little bit of a choosy decision.
Yeah, I liked the mix of both at first, especially given how low the MP was for the majority of the seeds, so still having the weapon option was very nice.
I'll get your GGs in the chat for Harrison as well, who has just defeated the Dragonlord and is walking back to the king. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Sparkover, is when you were at level 13 or so and had gotten the Rainbow Drop together, you did a dive into Sharlock that ended up ending to a Stone Man. What were your thoughts in terms of what you were intending or hoping to get out of that particular dive?
I like scouting the castle. Like, that much is, you know, just kind of nice to have at least a little bit of information in there, but I really wasn't counting on making it to the bottom, but I figured, hey, if I did, cool. And shoutouts to MTI, I was honestly thinking of looking for the sword in the sword chest first, but I didn't because math.
Did the Fighter's Ring enter your calculus in terms of possibly wanting to get 2 items out of the bottom?
I mean, you know, I knew it was available, but like, say it were, you know, in the vanilla sword chest, I probably wouldn't have looked at that, because I was pretty certain with the Death Necklace, you know, I was good to go either way, but Fighter's Ring is always a nice little bonus.
Absolutely. Again, GG Sparkover. It was a great race. I think the thing that seemed to really put you out in front and to kind of carry you through this race was that decision to get the princess when you did. That seemed to make all of the exploration kind of tie together. What did you think about that?
It was a cute little map. I mean, the princess I knew that would be necessary for me, and I know I had to use the Gwaelin's Love kind of a few times to really figure out where it was. But I mean, by the time I got there, it was fine. And when I was exploring the last of the North, I actually died. And it turned out to be a good thing because it cost me to explore south of Sherlock, which found everything else I needed. So it tied up pretty well that way.
Yeah, it was the feeling I got when I was watching you is just that the exploration seemed to be very good, very on point. And again, that decision to get the princess really saved a lot. How did you enjoy those enemies on the way to Hawksness? We saw when you were going to grind.
They were the worst. They were absolutely the worst. It's like, and honestly, very close to the end of the grind, when I died, I actually finally figured out that, oh, it's probably just about as fast to die and heal in the castle and walk back than it is to walk to Catelyn and back, because I swear Cole was around there, but it actually just kind of disappeared off the map. Cole doesn't exist.
Yeah, it ended up being the case that Harrison found that it was a little bit down to the right going from Hawksness, and so he was walking back there, but yeah, we were commenting upon the walks versus just taking the Death Warp, although there was a difficult enemy set kind of along the Death Warp path for sure.
Yeah, it was rude, but overall they were probably pretty similar in times, but yeah, I figured out way too late I probably just should have taken the deaths, but that's okay.
Harrison isn't joining us in the voice interview, but he is in the chat. Harrison, GG, I know you had a really tough draw for the first 2 opponents that you've had in this tournament. You had a former winner and a previous top 5 runner, and so hopefully you will have some kinder matchups perhaps in the future, but you still handled yourself very well. If you have any general thoughts, feel free to type them out.
Harrison, you were actually just on Sparkover's heels there. She did the exact same thing. So you both followed through in the same way. I think you explored a little bit more before you chose to reset, but I would say it was probably within 30 seconds to a minute at that point.
And yeah, throughout the race, I feel like Harrison was mostly behind on experience, but mostly behind, but kind of right on Sparkover's tail. And there was somewhere in the mid game around 3,000 or 4,000 experience where Harrison briefly took the experience lead when Sparkover was kind of getting some items together. But this was pretty close race throughout that kind of tracked. And so it'd be interesting to watch it back. You'll get a good sense of where you stood. I see that we have the schedule of upcoming races that have already been scheduled for, here we are at the very beginning of week 2. And so, yeah, we've already mentioned 2 more games tonight with Ness Cardinality and Thilo and Big Slimu and Geneseel, which are going to be, I think, on Randomania and Randomania 2, respectively. So check those out at 9 and 10:30 Eastern tonight.
Right, and just to add to what we were talking about, Harrison, I think there were 2 major departures that created space in the race here. And I think the first was that Sparkover was able to get to Hawksness earlier and to get the armor out of there earlier. And that's going to sound very familiar to you, I imagine, to the last race. But then also having the princess along helped that exploration a lot more, where I think you had to make a whole special trip to go out to it. But otherwise, you two were both doing very much the same things throughout the race. It was a very similar looking race with exploration, where there really wasn't anything that one of you found that the other one didn't find within a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Sparkover, any other thoughts or any things to say moving forward?
I mean, this was a nice breath of fresh air Zoomy seed after the heck that I had to go through yesterday. So,
That's right. Yeah, you had them back to back, basically, the races. And that was, yeah, this race was very different than that one in terms of early gear, early hurt more, nicer map. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to schedule mine early this week just because I was actually going to be out of town for later on in the week. So, I mean, just huge shout outs to the crew for putting this together, both on short notice and for a Monday morning when I know a lot of people generally aren't as available. So, yeah, just thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks especially to Archfield Monk, who's our restreamer today. I think Up to NG was tracking. And yeah, to our racers who put on a very good show for us. So this was an enjoyable one to do.
All right. Yes. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, both racers, for helping to describe everything that happened in chat. GG to both of you. Thank you to our host, and thank you, Lorgon, for commentating with me. And excellent job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we got lots of races to look forward to, and I think we're winding down this one. I think we're probably going to send a raid over to High Spirits Way in a little bit. So thanks, everybody. Keep your eye on the schedule. I'm sure we have the DWR schedule link in the chat. And we will see you again for future races. There's going to be lots.